Hi, everybody. This is Jay Early. Welcome to the webinar on self-therapy journey. I'm having a little technical problems getting my slideshows up on my other computer, but hopefully I will get that straightened out in a few minutes. In the meantime, I want to make sure that you can see and hear me okay. You will see on the right side of your screen, let me turn this on. What do I need to do here? Oh, I know. No, that's not it. Here we go, Webinar Jam. Okay, now, on the right side of your screen, there, I just enabled it. So you should be able to, ooh, what is going on here? Anyway, you should be able, sorry about this technical glitch here. You should be able to see a chat box in the right side of your screen. And let me just check. And so hopefully, if this is working properly, you should be able to send me a chat. So please do let me know if you can see and hear me okay, if everything is solid here or not. And I'm not sure why I'm not quite seeing this correctly. Hopefully, I will if anybody sends me a chat. Anyway, send me a message and let me know how it's going. By the way, it takes about 20 seconds from when you actually send a chat message until I see it. So it'll take a few minutes. I'm just going to wait a while. I see I have at least 8 people already. Oh, there's something. There we go. Now I got it straightened out. Okay. Let's see. Now I'm getting some responses. Thanks for doing this. Testing. Everything works fine. Hi. Yes, I can see. Okay, good. Looks like that part is working. And meanwhile, on my other computer, I have a slideshow, which hopefully there seemed to be some glitch on my other computer. It seemed to be kind of stuck. So until that gets straightened out, I'm not going to be able to actually show you the slideshow, but maybe that's not crucial anyway. Anyway, I will go ahead and begin talking. So this webinar is on self-therapy journey, which is an online tool that I've developed for psychological healing and personal growth. And I guess I should be looking down this way, shouldn't I? So you can actually see me looking at me instead of see me looking up in the air. Okay, so hi everybody. So let me start out by telling you a little about who I am and my background. I'm a psychologist. I've been practicing psychotherapy for 40 years. And in 2002, I discovered internal family systems therapy, IFS, which is a very powerful and easy to use form of therapy. And it is, I started using it to work on myself and also started using it with my clients back then. And then I got officially trained in IFS. And IFS is so powerful and so user-friendly that it's pretty much all I do these days with my clients. And in addition to that, I started teaching. I teach classes to the general public to help you learn how to use IFS to work on yourself, because IFS really lends itself to self-therapy in a very powerful way. Now, this webinar is not actually on IFS specifically, but self-therapy journey is partly based on IFS, and that's also a big part of my background. So that's why I'm talking about it. So in addition to teaching these courses, I have also assisted in professional trainings, and I do consultation training groups and professional courses for therapists and coaches and other helping for professionals and so on. In addition to that, after I'd been teaching the IFS courses for a couple years, I wrote a book called Self-Therapy, which is basically a manual for IFS. And even though it's intended for the general public, it's also actually been used by a fair number of therapists in order to learn or deepen their understanding of IFS. And it's been very successful. Even though it's a self-published book, it has sold 20,000 copies so far and still going strong. So that's one thing that's very cool. And I've also written a number of other books, and my wife, Bonnie Weiss, is also an experienced, excellent IFS therapist, and she and I have co-produced quite a few audio products and other things. So IFS has been a big part of my life. In addition to that, I have developed something called the pattern system, which is a system for understanding personality. By the way, the reason I keep looking over here is because I'm waiting for my laptop, my other computer, to boot back up, and then I'm going to try to get the slideshow going. But anyway, it's very slow. It's an old machine. It goes very slowly. Anyway, the pattern system, you can think of it as a periodic table for psychology. It's a systematic, detailed way of understanding the psychology of your personality with an emphasis on personal growth. And self-therapy journey is also based on the pattern system. And the pattern system has actually three main components to it. Patterns, which are problematic ways of being, such as procrastination, inner critic, people-pleasing, and things like that. It also has healthy capacities like self-esteem or assertiveness. And it also has emotional wounds, like things that happen to you in childhood to cause difficulties, such as shame or judgment or being dominated or being rejected, things like that. So those are the three components of the pattern system, and those all show up in self-therapy journey. Okay, so it really would be helpful. I can't rush it. This machine is so slow. I'm just going to have to wait until it boots up and get things ready. So let's see, what else do I want to tell you? I have slides for these, but okay, so one of the things I want to tell you is that one of my passions is to bring IFS to the world, because IFS is such a wonderful form of therapy, and I want it to be as widespread as possible. And also, I want to bring the pattern system to the world, because I think it is by far the best personality system of all of them. Of course, I'm biased because I created it. And I also want to bring self-therapy journey to the world. And especially, I'm hoping to make self-therapy journey to bring personal growth and psychological exploration and healing to the wide number of people who either don't have access to therapy or can't afford it or prefer to work on your own. So that's another, I really want to get these things out into the world and hopefully be known by a wide number of people, because it really feels like an opportunity to bring, excuse me, bring personal growth and healing to a much wider number of people than those people who can actually afford to go to therapy and so on. So let's see. what else do I want to say? So where are those slides? Here we go. Okay, this thing is taking forever, but now it looks like it's booting up again. Hopefully we will have slides shortly. Give me a minute or two to just get this straightened out here. Okay, I want to turn the camera off, turn that off. Okay, join. All right, there we go. Now I got to get PowerPoint up. Sorry about this. Okay, I'll talk some more while all this is going. Oh, all right. So let's. No, I've got to get the PowerPoint up first before I do the screen sharing. Okay. Anyway, sorry about this. So. What else do I want to tell you? So basically, the way self-therapy journey works is you log on and you can take a quiz. Basically, you want to decide which pattern you'd like to transform, like something that's problematic for you, or you can choose a healthy capacity that you'd like to develop further. Or you can choose an emotional wound that you'd like to heal. You can choose any of the three. But usually people start with a pattern. There we go. We're getting closer to here now. I've almost got this slideshow up here. Okay. Oh, can't do that yet. Wait a minute. I've got to get this. Do the screen share. Entire screen. Okay, now do this and do slideshow from first. Bingo! Finally, it's working. Okay, there we go. So now I'll run through this. So what I didn't say about IFS is that it's a form of therapy that works with parts, which are like little people inside you that have their own feelings, and you can actually talk to them instead of just dealing with psychological complexes or schema. You're actually talking to little people inside you, which makes it very powerful. IFS is also non-pathologizing. It is spiritually oriented. It is very effective with trauma, and I didn't create it. It was created by Richard Schwartz, PhD, and there are training programs in IFS in all over the country and even the world. So here is that self-therapy book I talked to you about. Here is the pattern system. Here is a little chart on the right side that this is why I call it a periodic table for psychology. And this is only one of 3 tables like this. This is the interpersonal dimension group. And then here's what I was talking about self-therapy journey. Talked about my passion. Okay, now I think we're up to date here. So this webinar, in addition to, I'm going to be introducing you to self-therapy journey. I'm going to be doing a short guided meditation with you for accessing self. Then I'm going to be demonstrating all 5 stages of self-therapy journey. I'm actually going to be showing you how it actually works on your computer. And then I'll give you some additional resources that are available. Okay, so let's do just to get started, let's do a little guided meditation. So just to, I should tell you, in IFS there are parts which are protectors, which are like defenses, which are parts that try to protect you from underlying pain and also help you to navigate the world so you don't get harmed. And then there are exiles, which are wounded inner child parts who are carrying pain from your childhood. And then there is the self. And the self is who you truly are. You could think of it as your spiritual center. It's a place of compassion, connectedness, calmness, and curiosity. And the self is the agent of healing in IFS, not the therapist, which is one of the reasons why IFS lends itself so well to self-therapy and makes it a great basis for self-therapy journey. But anyway, let's do a little guided meditation now. So everybody get into a comfortable position for a short guided meditation. The best thing is usually to be sitting upright with your spine erect and yet relatively relaxed. Close your eyes, turn your attention inward, and focus your attention on your body. Just being aware of your body sensations. Like you might notice, actually, you know what? Focus your attention on the sensations in your belly specifically. You might notice a softness in your belly, or maybe a solidness, or a fullness, or you might just notice the rise and fall of your belly with each breath, or something else. Whatever it is, just keep your attention on the sensations in your belly. And this will help you to relax a little further, to be centered and grounded in that center part of your body. And if you find your mind wandering, just gently bring it back to your belly in the present. Just being present with those sensations. And allow that to take you deeper inside into a quieter place. Letting go, relaxing. And now turn your attention briefly to your heart area. Focusing on the sensations in your heart, in your chest. And allow your heart to soften a little bit. Maybe to open a little more than it has been. Maybe to feel some warmth in your heart. Yeah, take a deep breath into your chest and just feel your heart expanding, softening, maybe melting a little bit. And at the same time that you're feeling your heart, also feel those sensations in your belly. or in your pelvis, or even in the entire lower part of your body, including your legs. So you feel grounded and centered in your belly and the lower part of your body, and you feel some softness and openness in your heart. And if you notice anything that's getting in the way, any recurring thoughts or other body sensations or needs or desires or defenses, those would be considered parts in IFS. And just ask those parts if they would be willing to just for this guided meditation to step aside a little bit and just allow you to be in self, to be in that grounded, open-hearted place. And they may or may not be willing to do that, and if they're not, that's fine. Just notice what parts there were that wouldn't step aside, because those are parts you might want to work on at some time in the future. Okay, so hopefully this has given you a little bit of a sense of what it's like to be in self. And now gradually begin to bring yourself back from that deeper meditative place that you've been in, bringing back with you as much of that sense of self as you can. Gradually beginning to move around a little, open your eyes, and as you're ready, bring yourself back to the room that you're in and back to the webinar. Okay, so if anybody feels, whenever you've had a moment to come back from where you were, if anybody feels like sharing in the chat, and by the way, oh dear, I think I've set the chats wrong. Hold on. I had set it so that all messages were private. I've now set it so all messages are public. I'm sorry about that. So anything you put in the chat function now will actually be able to be seen by everybody, and I will respond to it. If you do have something private that you like to, and unfortunately I can't respond to private chats during the webinar because I've got too much else going on. But if anybody does have any questions that you like to ask me about anything that I'm presenting that you don't want to be public, just send me an email and I'll respond to it later. But I love to have, so if anybody wants to share in the chat what you experienced doing the guided meditation, please do that. And also, as I go, if anybody has any questions about anything I'm talking about, please ask, or if any sharing you want to do that you're willing to be public, please do that. I love to have participation. In fact, I'm sorry we can't actually talk to each other verbally, that it's only through the chat, but that's the way these webinars go. I think probably the technology will get a little bit better in a while, and then we'll be able to actually talk to each other. Okay, so let me tell you more about Self-Therapy Journey. It's inexpensive. It's a tiny fraction of the cost of therapy. It allows you to take charge of your inner work. You can do it in your own convenience, on your own time schedule. If you want, you have complete privacy, and if you want, and I encourage people who want to get a buddy or a partner, that somebody that you can share what you're going through as you go through Self-Therapy Journey, and help provide some of that personal support that is so helpful when you're doing this kind of work. By the way, I have to eat very frequently, and so I can't actually go a whole 2 hours webinar without munching a little bit. So if you hear, like I'm munching a little something right now, if you hear that, I apologize, but it's necessary. Self-Therapy Journey is more personal and more interactive than a self-help book. It helps you to keep your work, your inner work, on track, and it provides detailed, customized reports of everything that you work on. So, what can you do with Self-Therapy Journey? Well, first of all, you can discover issues that you might want to work on. So, some issues you probably know, and you can look through the list of patterns, a list of psychological issues, and find the ones that you would like to work on. They're most likely there. But if you're not sure, I have a couple of quizzes that you can take, which will give you scores for each of the patterns. Each one gives you scores for all the interpersonal patterns, and the other gives you scores for all the other patterns. So you can take one or both of those quizzes and get more information about the kind of things you might want to work on. Oh, somebody's heart softened in the meditation. That's nice. Okay. It also helps you understand your problematic patterns, understand how they show up in your life, what the thoughts are behind them, the feelings, the underlying psychological motivations that drive your patterns. You can, in Self-Therapy Journey, you can actually do IFS sessions. IFS is an experiential therapy. You don't just think about your issues. You actually go inside and contact your parts and talk to them and see them and, develop relationships with them. And in Self-Therapy Journey, there are guided meditations to actually lead you through segments of IFS sessions, so you experientially can contact your parts and get to know them and heal them. So you can heal your wounded inner child parts and also help to transform your other parts, your protectors. You can also explore the healthy capacities that you would like to develop. As I said, healthy capacities like assertiveness or self-esteem or cooperation or intimacy. There's lots of them. You can also set up real-time practices to practice changing your behavior in your life in situations where it comes up. And Self-Therapy Journey not only helps you set up these real-time practices, but also helps you track them and improve them and so on. And with Self-Therapy Journey, you can end up, especially using the pattern system aspects of Self-Therapy Journey, you can develop, if you work at it, you can develop a complete psychological profile of yourself. You can do Self-Therapy Journey on your own or use it as an adjunct to therapy that you're in. You can do it by yourself or with a buddy. That would be somebody, either a friend of yours or somebody you find. We have an online community, and it's a place where you can find a buddy to work with you and support you in doing Self-Therapy Journey. Basically, so if you do work with a buddy, which would either be a friend or somebody you find online, that person can either be with you actually in person or on the phone while you're actually doing your Self-Therapy Journey sessions, or they can just be somebody that you talk to afterwards to fill them in on what you did and get their support. And also they will, of course, help you to be accountable, because one of the big issues we've discovered in people doing this kind of work on their own is accountability. That is, really actually doing the work. And one of the things I recommend is that people actually schedule their Self-Therapy Journey sessions almost the way you would schedule a session with a therapist, so that you know that, let's say, Tuesday at 4 o'clock, you're going to do a session and you stick with it. Because otherwise, defenses come up, protectors come up, and sometimes they get you to avoid doing the work. And so either through scheduling or through having a buddy that can really help you to to actually do the work and not avoid it. With Self-Therapy Journey, you can focus primarily on insight, on behavior change, on deep healing, psychological healing, or all of the above. As I mentioned, you can join our online community, and I also provide personal support for all Self-Therapy Journey users, and there are even courses that I offer that you can take along with Self-Therapy Journey. Okay, so now let's do a demonstration. So let me show you a little of this. So I'm going to go back to here, but then I'm going to, oops, hold on, I can't do that yet. I've got to get, here we go. All right, let me get here. And now I'm going to screen share here. Okay, so now you should be able to, let me just check, yes. You should, now this is the current homepage of Self-Therapy Journey. I'm actually working on an improved homepage, which will be available in maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So basically, I guess the simplest way to show, let me go here. So if you go and want to start working on a new pattern or capacity, of course here's a video you can watch that shows you how this works. But so here are the options for getting started. You can take a quiz, so you can take an interpersonal quiz or a non-interpersonal. Let's suppose I click on the non-interpersonal quiz. Here it is. You can fill in, now I've already filled in sort of randomly all these questions, and then you click here to get your results. Come on, there we go. So now you see your results. Sorry, I'm munching again, but so this hypothetical person scored 75 out of 100 for perfectionists, same for inner critics, 69 out of 100 for the foggy pattern. See, these are all different patterns: angry pattern, underminer pattern, depressed pattern, taskmaster. And you get a score for each one. The higher scores indicate you probably do have the pattern. The medium scores indicate you may have it. And the low scores indicate you probably don't have it. So from here, you can click on any of the ones that you do have to learn more about them. But let me go back. So let's suppose maybe you don't want to take a quiz. So another option is you can look at a list of all the patterns. Here's a list of all the patterns that are in Self-Therapy Journey: angry, caretaking, conflict avoiding, controlling, defensive, dependent, depressed, destroyer, which is a form of inner critic, foggy, etc., etc., etc. Here's a little statement, but you can click on any of these. Or, well, maybe you'd prefer to start with a healthy capacity. So here's a list of all the healthy capacities in Self-Therapy Journey: aliveness, assertiveness, being centered, challenge, being able to challenge people that you want to bring up issues with, clarity, conscious consumption, cooperation, courage, ease, good communication, intimacy, pleasure, etc., etc. So that's another way. You can also, there's a list of common psychological issues here with the patterns that go with them. Like if you're not sure, you know, like if you dissociate, well, that's the foggy pattern. If you're afraid of conflict, it's a conflict avoiding pattern, and so on. So you can see how these go. And then, or if you want, if you're interested in browsing through the pattern system, you can go here, and I'll just show you a little about the pattern system. So, whoops, wow, that link is bad. My goodness. Let's hope this one. Why are these links bad? That's very strange. Oh, all right, well, here's one that's good. I'll have to fix those links. So here is one of the dimension groups in the pattern system. Actually, I don't have many of these in here, but I do have one. So you can look over the chart, and you can also look at the different dimensions: change, hope. The one that's in here is the coherence dimension, which includes the foggy pattern and the clarity capacity. So you can click on the foggy pattern and work on that. So actually, so let me show you the next thing, which is that each pattern is paired with a capacity. So let's suppose, let me go back. The one I'm going to illustrate here is the inner critic pattern. So let's suppose you go back to here. I won't even click on it because I've already got it open here. So here is the beginning of the inner critic pattern. And the inner critic pattern, every pattern is paired with a healthy capacity. And so the inner critic pattern, which of course tears down your self-esteem, is paired with the healthy capacity self-esteem. So that's part of your exploring the inner critic pattern, is also to work on the healthy capacity and also the underlying emotional wounds that are behind your inner critic pattern, which is in stage 2. So I'm now about to start showing you how to go through a pattern capacity pair in self-therapy journey. But before I do that, let me just go back and see if anybody has any. No, there's nothing else in the chat. So just anytime you've got a question about anything I say, just pop it in the chat. I will check it periodically, and then I can respond to any questions you have. So if you got a question now, just type it in there, and I'll check back in a minute or so. So here we are. So we start out with this page that gives you a description of whatever pattern it is. In this case, the inner critic pattern. And all patterns have a false belief, which is a short little thing that sort of summarizes the problems with the pattern. Here, the false belief is there's something wrong with me. Now, you will notice that here are the 5 main stages for working through a pattern across the top. And then there's also a little intro stage, which is the one we're on here. And when you're in a stage, there are pages, or steps in the process that you can see on the left column here. So we're on the description step now, description page. And when you're done that, you can click on next, which will take you to the next page over here, which is a story page. And this contains a story about one person's inner critic pattern, which may help you to understand the pattern better. And then you can either click next, or you can click over here. And the next page just gives you some patterns that are similar to the pattern that you've chosen to work with, so that you can look over these if you want, and that you might decide that you'd actually prefer to work with one of these than the inner critic pattern. In this case, there are 5 types of inner critics that are listed here. There are actually 7 or 8 that Bonnie and I have identified in our study of the inner critic. And so far, 5 of them are in self-therapy journey. So you could decide, well, I've actually got a taskmaster pattern, or a perfectionist, or an underminer, a food controller, or destroyer. I think I'd rather work on one of those specific types of inner critics. Or if you think it's better to really just keep going with the general inner critic pattern, you can do that. Then the next page, you actually get to explore what types of situations tend to trigger your inner critic to attack you. So I've typed off a few. It happens when I'm eating or drinking, when somebody gets angry at me, when somebody asks me to do something that I've messed up in the past, and so on. You can type in whatever situations you want, or you can add your own. You see, I added one here. I'll take that out. But you click here, and then type in whatever you like. And you see that, whoops, it clicked up here. There, see, there it is, type in. It actually becomes part of the list. And all these things that you've checked off and or typed in will show up in your inner critic report. So that's one of the reasons it's useful to do this. So there may also be types of people that tend to trigger your inner critic attacks. Judgmental people, maybe women, maybe your managers or bosses, or it could be whatever. You check off whatever seems right for you, and then of course you can add your own, and then there's also specific people that you can type in here. So now at this point, this little introductory stage is there to help you just learn enough about this pattern, in this case the inner critic pattern, to decide whether you have it enough that you actually want to work on it. If you don't, then over here in the right column you can click there to explore other patterns. But if you do, you click here to begin the main 5-stage process for working on the pattern. And here is a summary of the 5 stages, which are also across the top. So stage 1 is exploring the pattern, in this case the inner critic pattern and its underlying dynamics. The second stage is understanding the childhood origins of your pattern and healing them. For those of you who know IFS, we're talking about unburdening exiles here. And in terms of the pattern system, these are emotional wounds. Stage 3, you explore the healthy capacity that helps to transform the pattern. In this case, it's self-esteem. Stage 4, you work through the fears or other motivations that drive your inner critic pattern. And then in stage 5, you actually set up a real-time practice to activate the self-esteem capacity in your life instead of the inner critic pattern. So that's the whole outline of the 5 stages. So now let's move on to stage 1. But actually, now I'm going to go back and check and see if there's any questions. Nope, still no chat questions. Okay, now we'll go back and go on. So, so in stage 1, there's a video that explains how stage 1 works, but if you're ready, and there's also a user's guide, but if you're ready to begin, you click here, and now you see we're up in stage 1 here, and there's a new set of pages over here on the left. So these are pages to explore in more detail your inner critic pattern. So here are the behaviors and feelings that go with, in this case, the inner critic pattern. And you check off whichever ones fit for you. I checked off a few. I try to do things perfectly. I set very high standards in the things I do. I work hard to fit in so I won't be rejected, etc., etc. And then the next page is, now, here's where we begin to get into stuff that's oriented toward IFS, toward parts. So if you have, of course, your inner critic is a part of you. And so here you can choose a name for this, and you might have more than one inner critic. This is just the one you're working on in this particular go through. So here you can choose a name. So here I chose the name the judge. Well, why don't I change it? Let's suppose I call it the bully. Okay. Or if I don't like any of those names, I can choose my own name and type that in. Then you go into the next page, and now you can choose an image for what your inner critic part looks like. So here's a bunch of images of potential inner critics. Or if you don't like any of those, you can go to Google Images, find an image you really like, download it to your computer, then upload it to Self Therapy Journey. Or if you don't find anything there and you really have just a very specific sense of what your inner critic looks like, you can type in the description here if you don't have actually a good image for it. So the next page is, you can think of these as thoughts, or you can think of these as statements that your inner critic part says. So here, again, you check off the ones that are relevant. So you're so deficient, don't even attempt that. Who do you think you are? You're not worth the effort. You're stupid. And you get the idea. There's a lot of nasty things that our inner critics can say to us. And if you can also add, and by the way, you don't just get to add one statement of your own, you can add many. So you type in one and then other statement shows up again. You can click on it and type in another one. And then when your inner critic is attacking you, there will be another part of you that we call the criticized child, which is receiving the brunt of the inner critic attacks and feeling bad about itself. And so it's really useful to notice what those feelings are that the criticized child is feeling. So here's a list of maybe inadequate, lazy, loser, mediocre, not special, ashamed. So you check off whichever of these get triggered in you when this inner critic attacks you. And now we go on to the next page, which is, now here's where we get into the experiential IFS work. You go down here, and this is a recording of a guided meditation that actually takes you through the steps of getting to know a part in IFS and understanding its positive intent and developing a trusting relationship with it. Maybe I better explain a little more about that for those of you who don't know IFS. Inner critic parts are protectors, and every protector in IFS has a positive intent for you. It's especially surprising in the case of inner critic parts, because they cause us so much pain and they shut us down so much and constrict us so much that you might think, why would you think that this part is doing anything positive for you? Well, I'm not saying it's doing anything positive. I'm saying it has a positive intent, that the inner critic is trying to protect you from pain in its own way by criticizing you, which of course causes you pain, but it nevertheless is an attempt to protect you from pain. So, for example, it might trying to get you to do things perfectly so that you can get love or connection, or trying to get you to work hard or be disciplined so you'll be successful, or it might be trying to undermine your self-confidence so you won't take risks that it thinks are dangerous, or so you won't try and fail, or so you won't become too powerful and visible and therefore be attacked or rejected. Now, there might not be any real danger of that happening, but your inner critic is afraid of it happening. Whatever it is, it might not be that, it might be one of these other things. And that's something you'll find out in doing this guided meditation. You'll actually go inside, access your inner critic, talk to it, get to know it, develop a trusting relationship with it, find out what it's trying to protect you from. And that really helps a whole lot. There's a version of the recorded meditation with music or without music, or if you prefer, there's also the text of the guided meditation here. So you can just read that text to yourself, or even have a friend read it to you if that's what you prefer. So there's lots of different options. Okay, so when you finish the guided meditation, you can also take notes down here on what happened in the meditation, and that will also show up in your inner critic report. And now the next page is where you actually get to check off the underlying motivations, the positive intent that your inner critic part might have. And this might be something that you hopefully got from doing the guided meditation, but you also may get an intuitive sense of it by looking over the possibilities here. So my inner critic tries to get me to perform well so I don't get rejected, or so I don't get controlled by someone who needs to over-supervise me, or it's trying to control my destructive behavior so I don't get rejected, or to undermine my confidence. That's it. So you can see there's lots of different possibilities here. And you check off whichever ones seem right based on your meditation or whatever else you know or sense about what's going on underneath for that inner critic part. I think I'll skip the next 2 pages because they're not as important, and this is going to be a long webinar as it is. Okay, so now once you've done all these, the next to the last page is your inner critic report. And here it basically is a compilation of everything that you have checked off or typed in. I forgot to mention, you can also click here and take any notes that you want as you're going through your inner critic. And those will also show up in your inner critic report. So here's the name of the part, the image that I chose, the statements, the feelings of the criticized child, the motivations, etc. So that's all, and you can print this out and have it available anytime, or you can also access it on your computer or on a tablet or smartphone. And then now the last page, and now we say, okay, interlude, congratulations, you've now finished stage 1. And this usually takes most everybody an hour and a half. So you probably don't want to go on here. Probably want to come back at a different time and continue. So I give you a little homework you can do to become more aware of how your inner critic pattern shows up in your life. And then you can add what you've learned there to your inner critic report. And that's the end of stage 1. So I'm going to check back again and see if anybody has. So still no comments. Okay, so if anybody's got any questions about, whoops, sorry about that, I bumped the mic. I'm going to take another little bite of food. If anybody's got any questions, make sure to put them in the chat so I can answer them. Okay, so let's go back and go on. So we finished stage 1. We're ready to move on to stage 2. So we go back here to this overall stage sequence. You can see it down here on the left. And now we're going to go into stage 2. Now, stage 2 is where you explore the underlying motivation behind your inner critic pattern in more detail. And so it's actually based on the things you checked off in stage 1. I actually checked off a lot of these. Most people won't, an actual person probably won't have this many different motivations, but for testing purposes, I ended up checking all these. But anyway, whichever ones you did check off, which will probably be at least 3 or 4 of these, they show up here. And along with each one, with each motivation, see, here's the motivation. Like, my inner critic tries to get me to perform well so I'm not rejected. And that is associated with a wound. In this case, obviously, the rejection wound. So you can look at these and figure out which one of these seems most important or which one you want to do first, and then you click on the wound that you like to actually do. And here we are. Now we're in stage 2, and we're doing the rejection wound. And you can see there's a new set of pages, steps over here for exploring the rejection wound. This one just kind of gives you an overview. And here's the actual description of the rejection wound. And of course, this wound comes from having been rejected as a child. And so it explains how you feel and how you interact whenever that wound is triggered. And then the next page is, well, there's one other wound that's a little similar to the rejection wound, which is the unlovable wound. So here's a chance to, if you decide you think you'd rather, that this is actually more accurate for you than the rejection wound, you can switch and do that. Hold on, I just got to make sure this old computer is in good shape. Okay. Then the next page is triggers. Now, just like with a pattern, wounds get triggered under certain circumstances. So you can explore what situations tend to trigger your rejection wound. Well, maybe when asking somebody out on a date or applying for a job or trying to make a new friend. So I'll check off those. And then how do you behave when your rejection wound is triggered? I'm self-effacing. I avoid contact with people. I diminish myself and lose my spark. So there's a few that I checked off. And then how do you feel when your rejection wound is triggered? Unlovable, unattractive, insecure, backward, mediocre. Of course, this doesn't mean you actually are those things. This is just how you feel or the beliefs you have about yourself, which are not accurate, but cause us lots of problems. So now your rejection wound actually corresponds to a part. It's actually an exile in IFS terms, if you know IFS, which is a wounded inner child part. And so you choose, just like you did for your inner critic part, you can choose a name for your rejection wounded part. So simple name, rejected one. And then you can choose an image for it. Here's a bunch of images for, it looks like none of them are checked off. I think I'll check this one off. Okay, so that's an image for what your rejection wounded part looks like. And now it gets interesting. Now you get to actually explore what happened in childhood to cause the wound. In this page, you explore what a person may have done to you to cause you to feel rejected. So let's say, let's just take the first one. So let's say you're going to do mother. So enter, click here to continue. Now here's a bunch of possible things that may have happened to cause you to feel rejected. Mother turned away from me. Mother pushed me away. Mother didn't respond to me. Failed to express love, etc., etc. So you check off whichever ones apply, and of course you can add your own. What did mother actually say to you or implied, or add additional statements? You're a loser, don't bother me, I have more important things to do and pay attention to you, etc. You can add your own. Then when did these statements happen during childhood, and under what circumstances did they happen? Let's say when mother became stressed out, when mother became upset emotionally, when mother got busy, when she drank too much, whatever it might be. You check off the ones that are appropriate, and then those will all end up on your rejection wound report. Then you close the thing. Now, here's a next page is situation. May not be something that a person did, but maybe situations that caused you to feel rejected. I was bullied a lot as a child. I had a hard time making friends, etc. So you click off whichever one of those. And then the third possibility is that you might have gotten the wound not because of something that happened to you, but because a parent had a rejection wound. So here you can, that's called a legacy wound, and you can explore more about which parent may have had a rejection wound and what that, how you knew that, and maybe that's how you ended up with a rejection wound. And then the next page is another guided meditation, and this is for actually healing your rejection wound. So you can click here and work through this rather detailed guided meditation for actually healing and unburdening that exile that has the rejection wound. And then the next page, just like before, this is your rejection wound report, and this compiles everything that you checked off or typed in. Has the name, oh, it has two images. I guess one was checked off. Situations, and then you can also look at the specific reports for each of the people that you checked off, or the same with the legacy here. And then also, each wound is associated with a healthy capacity. And In this case, the rejection wound is the healthy capacity that will help to heal the rejection wound is a social confidence capacity. So this gives you a little description of that and gives you the opportunity, if you want to actually switch over and work on developing the social confidence capacity, or put it on a to-do list, or I call it a to-explore list, to let yourself know that you want to do that in the future. And then there's an interlude here. Again, at the end of stage 2, this probably would take another hour, an hour and a half, so this is probably a good time to take a break. Or you might want to do, you could do another wound, I guess. It depends on how quickly you did it. There's some homework here for learning more about your rejection wound. And then and now you've done one wound here, but you can now return when you've finished here, and you have now the option of, remember, we had all these different motivations associated with different wounds. If you want, you can do a different wound. Maybe you did your rejection wound, you say, but you know, I'm also clearly, my inner critic is clearly also trying to protect me from being judged or being dominated or being attacked. So there's lots of other possibilities. You can go through and do multiple wounds if you want in stage 2. I should mention here that that stage 2 work is pretty deep work and can go deeply into pain from childhood. And so there's a few people who have maybe a lot of trauma in your childhood, for whom it might not be completely safe to do stage 2 on your own. And therefore, in order to get access to stage 2, you actually need to be evaluated or by a licensed therapist or counselor, or it could be somebody you've already worked with who knows you, or and given an access code so that you're allowed to. So we know that it's safe for you and appropriate for you to be exploring these childhood origins on your own. If you've got a therapist or counselor, or you've worked with one in the past who knows you, you can ask them to get an access code and give it to you. Or if you don't, you can do a short evaluation session with me or with one of our other therapists or counselors in order to get an access code. And that does cost a little bit of money, but I keep it really cheap. I only charge $50. So that hopefully everybody can afford it. Okay, so I'm going to move on, but before I do, let me just check and see if there's any. Jesus, I wonder if the chat is actually working. It's very strange. I'm not getting any comments from anybody. Oh well. I don't know what I would do about it even if it looks like it should be working. Let me just disable it and then enable it again. Oh well. Anyway, feel free to stop in with comments or sharing if you want in the chat. So let's go on. So here we are. We've now finished stage 2, and I'm not going to do another wound, let's say. So the other thing I can do is that my inner critic may have been conditioned in certain ways that I was treated as a child, not because of wounds, but because a parent modeled it, being an inner critic, or I was taught to judge myself, or as rewarded for judging myself, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a way, I'm not going to go into the details, but you can also explore the childhood conditioning that might be behind your inner critic pattern. And then there's a couple other pages here. If you did get your inner critic model after one of your parents, there's a guided meditation for helping you to work with that. And then also, if there are additional emotional wounds that occur because of the inner critic attacks, you can work on those wounds if you want. In addition to the other wounds are because the inner critic is trying to protect you from those wounds. These are wounds that are actually inflicted by the inner critic. You might want to work on and heal those wounds too, so there's a page for that. And those are all just optional. You may or may not want to do that. But then when you're finished with stage 2, you move on to stage 3. And here we're going to work with the healthy capacity that transforms the pattern. In this case, it's self-esteem. So here's a description of the self-esteem capacity and the wisdom behind it, which is a kind of summary, which says self-esteem is my birthright. I deserve to feel good about myself just for being me. And that is the way all of us should be able to feel, and the way you will be able to feel when you have worked through your inner critics. So the next page is stories. Now, this is actually a follow-up story. Remember, in stage 1, we had a story about someone who had an inner critic pattern. This is a story of how that person worked through their inner critic pattern and developed their self-esteem capacity. So it's a nice little follow-up to the story in stage 1. And by the way, if you want to journal about your own self-esteem story, here's a place to do that. There was one in stage 1, 2 for the pattern. Then the next page, there are different aspects of self-esteem. So feeling good about myself, accepting myself, including my shortcomings, appreciating my talents and skills, appreciating my accomplishments, my positive qualities, knowing I'm intrinsically good, whatever. So here's a bunch of aspects, and you can add your own. So first of all, you check off the ones you already have to some extent, and then down here you check off the ones that you would like to develop or like to develop further. Maybe you have them some, but you want to develop them further. So these will also all go in your self-esteem capacity report. And then here, just like patterns and wounds correspond to parts, the capacities also correspond to parts, but these correspond to healthy parts. So you can choose a name for your self-esteem part. Here I chose, let me just choose a different, let's call it full heart. And then you can also choose an image for what your self-esteem part looks like. So I already got one image checked off, and maybe I don't like that one. Maybe I'll choose this one. Maybe I'm feeling more like that today. And then, again, you can check off the kind of situations that tend to support you in feeling good about yourself. Getting away, taking time to exercise, trying something new, mixing socially, my support group. These are situations that support you in having self-esteem, and then types of people that support you in having self-esteem. Maybe your partner, or maybe your IFS buddy, maybe your team members or your customers, who knows, whatever it might be, and then also specific people who might support you in having self-esteem. So these will all end up in your report. And then here it is. Here's a self-esteem report that compiles all the things you checked off. And like all the reports, you can print it out and have it available. Or you can just leave it here and access it from a computer or a device. All right, moving right along, we have now finished stage 3. So I'm going to take a short break, take another little bite of food. So you can see here that I've got a little more homework where you can learn more about how your self-esteem capacity shows up in your life, or how you like it to. And then when you're ready to move on, you go next and go to stage 4. Now, stage 4, so let me explain. Stages 4 and 5 are oriented toward setting up or preparing to set up a real-time practice where you're going to practice feeling good about yourself in a particular situation where you usually have an inner critic attack. And so what you're going to do here is you're going to choose a practice situation. So here's one that I chose. I just typed it in, when I speak out. So maybe that's a situation where your inner critic tends to attack you. And so when that situation shows up in your life, you're going to practice feeling good about yourself instead of having the inner critic attack. And so this is the beginning of this. You choose the situation, and then you go on, and then here you can fill out some more things. So remember, the inner, in this case, I called the inner critic the bully. So how do I usually behave in the practice situation, or how would I like to behave instead? This is here. It's not so much behavior, since it's inner critic, it's more feelings or beliefs. So, you know, how do I feel, you know, inadequate when I speak out, or I feel afraid to speak out, and how I would like to behave. I'd like to feel confident about speaking out. And then what are the fears? Remember, we checked before the different underlying motivations for your inner critic, the bully. Here we want to know which of those apply to this particular practice situation, speaking out. So maybe in this case, it's a fear of being attacked if I speak out. So I might type that in here. And then down here, this is a list of all the motivations I checked off in stage 1. It showed up in stage 2, and now it's also showing up here in stage 4. And so let's suppose I did say, you know what, I'm afraid of being attacked. So here's the motivation. The inner critic try to get me to perform well so I don't get attacked, okay? So I'm going to try to work through that fear, and being attacked is a kind of harm. So the stage 4 set of pages is going to be working through harm fear. And of course, there's also other kinds of fear, working through rejection fear, working through failure fear, working through success fear, etc. So this is the working through the fear of being attacked, judged, shamed, or violated, because those are forms of harm. And so what you do here, and I'm probably not going to go over all this in detail because you're probably getting a little blurry-eyed with all this. So I think I'm going to go a little quicker over the last couple stages. So first of all, you check to see, is the fear that I will be attacked if I speak up, is that realistic? Are the situations now in my life such that I'm likely to be attacked? And let me just explain. The reason why this is because our parts tend to have fears that go back to childhood. So if you have a fear of being attacked, and that's why your inner critic attacks you, I mean, a little paradoxical there, but that's the way parts work. That probably goes back to situations in your childhood where you were attacked, where you were yelled at or hit or whatever it might be. Now, most likely, the situations where you're going to be speaking up in your life today you're not likely to quite be attacked the way you were as a child. And in some cases, you can just say, like, it's just not going to happen. That's a childhood fear. It's just not going to happen in the present. In other cases, there might be some form of attack that could happen. It's probably not going to be as severe as what happened in childhood. And of course, you are a different person. You're an adult now. And you're not under your parents' power, or whoever it was that attacked you as a child. And you have a lot of inner resources, and you have external supports probably to help you, so that even if you do get attacked in some form, you probably can handle it. So here you just decide whether the fear of being attacked is realistic. And if it is, if it's not, you just go right on to do the guided meditation. If it is somewhat realistic, then there's a number of pages where you work through basically, is it worth speaking up in this situation, even though I might get attacked? How am I going to handle it if I get attacked? And how am I going to prevent somebody from hurting me too much if they might want to attack me? So you basically work out all those things in preparation for doing this guided meditation. And then in the guided meditation, what you do is you go back to that inner critic part that you got to know in the first meditation in stage 1, and you reconnect with it, and you basically reassure it that either the thing that it's afraid of won't happen in the practice situation that's coming up in the next week or two in your current life, or if it does happen, you know how to deal with it, and that's what you've done. That's what you've explored in the previous 3 steps. And so you know now how you're going to deal with it if it does happen, or you know it's not going to happen, and that you can use that in the guided meditation to reassure your inner critic part that whatever it's concerned about either isn't going to happen or you can handle it, and so it doesn't have to try to protect you by judging you. Or if you had some other pattern, if you had a controlling pattern, you'll be reassuring your controlling part that it didn't need to be controlling in order to protect you in this situation. So that's what stage 4 is. Then you move on to the interlude for stage 4. There's a little more homework if you want to do it. And then you return now, and you have the option of, if you want to, of doing another working through, or as many as you want. But then when you're finished, then you move on to stage 5. Let me check again before I go on to stage 5 and see if, I'm getting some stuff here now. Good. Okay. Are you getting this? Yes, I'm getting it. I'm getting a lot of starting and stopping, buffering. It's working fine. Okay. Change the settings, the sprocket window. Okay, good. People are helping each other. Thanks. Great. Thank you, folks. Okay, looks like nothing that I need to respond to. So let's go on back to stage 5. So now stage 5, what you're going to do is you're going to, remember, you've now chosen a practice situation where you're going to practice having, feeling good about yourself instead of being attacked by your inner critic. And here's where you set up the practice. So now the first page is kind of an inspiration page, because doing these homework practices is one of the hardest things for people to actually follow through on. That's one of the reasons that I really encourage you, unless you're somebody who really likes to work privately, that's why I really encourage people to get a buddy. Because your buddy, if you know that you're going to talk to your buddy, let's say you're in some situation where you're going to be speaking up in a few days and you're going to be talking, and so you say, okay, buddy, I'll talk to you after that and let you know how it went. So you're much more likely to actually do the practice if you've arranged with your buddy, to talk to them afterwards. So that having a buddy not only provides emotional support, it really helps you with accountability. But anyway, on this page, you're going to check off some of the pain and difficulties that are caused by your inner critic to inspire you to actually do the practice. So I'm just going to check off a few of them, and then you also check off what you have to gain by having self-esteem, feeling better about myself, having my needs met, having more time to take care of myself, feeling accepting and honest and open. So you can check off whichever of those, and that will help to inspire you to actually do the practice. And now the next step is, in that practice situation, like when I speak out, how will you know if you're actually being attacked by an inner critic? My thinking becomes muddled. I start to feel small and worthless. My body feels strong but rigid. I feel confused, etc. Or whatever else. You type in whatever clues will let you know, oops, inner critic attack is happening. Okay, then how can you reassure your inner critic, in this case the bully, that it doesn't need to attack you? So here's some things you could say. They aren't trying to judge me. I can choose to listen to others without being demeaned. That person is just trying to get their needs met, etc. So you check off a few of these that you think will help to reassure bully that it doesn't need to judge you, to protect you. And then you can also, if you think there are some of the things that it's afraid of that might happen, you can remind you can type in how you're going to reassure the part that you can handle it. So I'll check off a few of those. And here's even more ways, like I will bring this issue up in a centered way, or somebody tries to judge me, I'll refuse to listen to them, etc. So you can figure out whatever it is that you're going to try to do to be able to reassure the bully. And by the way, all these things are going to go into your practice plan. So you're checking them off, and then you're going to end up with a practice plan to actually use in the practice situation. So now the next step is to actually evoke self-esteem. So what are some statements I can say to myself? I have the right to decide what actions to take for my own happiness. How I relate to myself and others is improving each day. What I have to say is important. So whatever these, and of course you add your own. Often the ones you add your own are the most important of all the statements. Then you can check off. Now, in addition to statements, you can also use body sensations, body posture, breathing, feelings, or states of consciousness to help activate full heart, which is the self-esteem part. So a broad field of vision, deep breathing, joy in my heart, a straight spine, sense of personal agency, standing tall, etc., etc. You check off whichever one of those feels right. And then if there are people who are likely to be around in the situation who might be willing to help you and support you in having self-esteem, you fill in who that person is or people are and what you want from them to help you or what you want them not to do. I won't bother trying to fill anything in there now. Now, here is a really cool thing that helps. This is not just for inner critics. It's for all healthy capacities, but it really helps, especially with inner critics, and that is to develop your inner champion. And your inner champion is basically a healthy part of you, or if you know IFS, you might think of it as an aspect of self or as a healthy part, either one, that supports you in being yourself and feeling good about yourself. And there is a version of the inner champion for each healthy capacity. So in this case, you're going to be developing your self-esteem inner champion. And here you can choose a name for your self-esteem inner champion, which might be, let's say, caring parent. Because an inner champion is kind of like, you can think of it as kind of like analogous to either a cheerleader or a really ideal supportive parent. But of course, it's a part of you. It's not another person. So that's the first page on, oh, wait a minute. No, there's more to that. There's actually also a guided meditation that you can do here to help you find the sources of your inner champion in supportive people in your life or in your past, or famous people or fictional or mythical people. So it's a way of kind of like priming the pump for being in touch with championing type people to help evoke that inside you. And then here are some images of what your self-esteem inner champion might look like. Like maybe it looks like this kind of supportive father with a son. And then what do you want? Here's the most, what do you want your inner champion to say to you to support you in feeling good about yourself and being yourself? Check off whatever you want. You're competent. You do excellent work. You're a good person. You're lovable. You deserve to be happy. Just be yourself. You have unique gifts, etc. So you check off whichever of those you want, which will all end up in your practice plan. And then you can click here, and this is another guided meditation for actually activating your self-esteem inner champion. And then now you're all prepared. So now here is your practice plan. And this again compiles, just like with the reports, this compiles all the things that you checked off or filled in. Here's this practice situation, preparation, activating. Anyway, here's the whole report of all the things so you can, again, print this out and have it with you so you can actually use it in your life in those when it comes up, or if you prefer to keep it on STJ, you can just have a tablet around to use. Smartphones don't work as well. You can kind of see things on your smartphone, but it's really self-therapy journey is not optimized for a small screen, so it's hard to actually make changes on a smartphone. So it's better to use a tablet if you need a portable device. And then the next page gives you detailed instructions for carrying out the homework practice. We recommend you work with a buddy, how to know what you want to do at the time of the practice situation. Here's 3 possibilities. I'm not going to go into all this now. And then what to actually do at the time of the practice situation. And then the next page is for tracking your self-esteem, for tracking your practice. And what you like to do, ideally, is each time you do the practice, each time the practice situation arises, and you notice your inner critic getting activated, and then you do the practice to bring in your inner champion and evoke self-esteem and feel good about yourself. What you'd like to do as soon as you can after each time it happens is there's a page, there's actually 3. So there's an incident tracking page for actually tracking what happens each time you do the practice. And then there's a different page that you do at the end of each day to kind of reflect back on the day. Did it actually happen today? And if it did I do the practice? Or, like maybe my inner critic attacked me and I didn't notice, or I didn't do the practice. And so that's a way of reflecting on that. And then there's a weekly tracking page for each week, reflecting back on the week and seeing how your tracking went. And then at that point, you can ask yourself, do I want to modify this practice in any way? Do I want to change any of the things? Or do I want to choose a different practice situation? Or do I want to, choose a different inner champion, or whatever it might be? So to make your practice as effective as possible. And then, of course, now you can get to these these tracking pages here, but of course that's not how it's actually going to work, because when you're in the middle of your life, you're not going to be in the middle of stage 5. So what Self-Therapy Journey has is it has a dashboard, and this is where you go. This is kind of where you go each time you enter into Self-Therapy Journey, and you can do lots of things from your dashboard. But for our purposes, you can check in your practice pages here, and you can see if I scroll down to here's the inner critic self-esteem one, and here's if you want, you can look at your self-esteem plan that I showed you. This is your practice plan, and then here are the links to the incident tracking page, the daily tracking page, and the weekly tracking page. And if you want to re-look at your tracking instructions, you can look at that page too. So that's that. But let me go back here. Okay, so now, but we haven't actually gotten to this. So now we're at the end of stage 5. And so here's your interlude, and I just ask a few more questions about how the person is actually planning to do the practice. Are you going to use your buddy? Who is your buddy? So this is a way of really encouraging you to get serious about doing the practice. And then when you're finished stage 5, you end up with this just little conclusion stage, which has just a couple pages in it. Which I don't even really need to go into. Again, this is detail that's not necessary here. Then you end up finally with the conclusion page. So you've now finished doing this one pattern capacity pair. Although, of course, you haven't actually finished it, because now you actually need to do the real-time practice in your life, in the practice situation. So you won't really be finished doing this until you spent a few weeks or a month actually practicing, practicing having self-esteem and, maybe bringing your inner champion in instead of attacks from your inner critic. Whoops, I forgot to turn the phone off. Sorry about that. All right, so I'll show you a little bit more about self-therapy journey, but let me go back and see if, nope, no more comments in the chat. Okay, so now that concludes all 5 stages. What else do I want to tell you? Let me show you more about the dashboard, I guess. So from the dashboard, you can start something new. You can begin a new pattern or capacity. Here, you can look at your to explore lists. There are many places in here where you can say, I'd like to explore this pattern in the future, or this capacity, or this wound, or this meditation. So here's a way to do that. You can check those there. If you want to check on any of your reports, you can find them here. You can review your quiz results here or take a new quiz that you haven't taken. Also, I showed you the practice pages. There's also the pattern status and restart page where you can basically, if you're in the middle of a pattern and you go off and do something else and you want to come back and restart where you left off, here is a place to do that. And you can also, here you can also access your reports and your practice pages for each particular pattern capacity pair. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how the dashboard works. Oh, I know, the thing I haven't shown you. Let me go back, where were we? Let me go back here. Actually, it might even be better to go into, it's probably pretty similar, but let me go into stage 1. So you will notice what I haven't mentioned is that on the right column, there are basically various help things. So if you need support, you can get it here. Here's the link to the dashboard. If you're having trouble staying with it, you're getting spaced out or distracted or bored or uncomfortable or wanting to avoid the work, you can click here and there's a whole page with helpful ways of analyzing that and understanding it and what to do about it, and even a guided meditation for working with the part of you that may be avoiding. Or if you're getting strong, painful emotions that are coming up, there's a page to get help in soothing yourself around these painful emotions. And then here's a place to take additional notes, and here's you can learn more information about the self-esteem dimension of the pattern system, which is where the inner critic and the self-esteem capacities are. So that's just optional. Okay. So let's go back now. So here we go. Hi, folks. I'm back. You can see me here. No more comments on here. So let me go. Oops. I was going to go back to my. Damn. Oh well. I was going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation, but it's fallen off. It's not here, so I can't do that. Let me just quote you. I've tested self-therapy journey on hundreds of people, and also it's been live for more than a year. And so, you know, there's been at least 300, 400, 500 people who've used it. And I've gotten a lot of really positive testimonials. Let me just read off a couple of them. Self-therapy journey is brilliant. It's been an absolutely great experience to use it. Every time I had a thought like, what about this? There was something in the online system to handle it. Here's another one. The greatest benefit of self-therapy journey is its ability to reveal the hidden motivations behind our limiting patterns. I recommend it highly. And here's an even longer one. I was amazed with the ease of use of STJ and how quickly it helped to identify areas in which I was having difficulty. The guided meditations helped me understand the underlying intention behind my pattern. The homework practice turned out beautifully, allowing me to be more cooperative with others. This is probably somebody who had either a rebel pattern or a controlling pattern. I learned to restate confusing feelings in an accepting and loving way. I can now let go of those parts that are no longer serving me. So those are just three three testimonials. There's lots more on the Self-Therapy Journey website. In addition to that, I mentioned our online community. You can go, we have an online community that's associated with Self-Therapy Journey, where you can not only find a buddy to do it, but you can also join in. There are forums, which are like listservs, where people share things online, and you can go on and share what you're going through and what you're learning. You can also ask questions about your self-therapy journey work or your IFS work. And your questions will be answered by other people in the online community, or by Karen Locke, our online community manager, or by myself. And you can learn from what other people are sharing and going through. And most importantly, you're developing community with people who are using Self-Therapy Journey, and in some cases, even with people who are struggling with similar issues. Like we have subgroups on the online community for certain common issues, like inner critic or procrastination or people pleasing or depression, things like that. And whenever there's enough interest, we'll start another subgroup like that. And then you can also use the online community to find somebody to support your real-time practice. Like that's one of the most important uses of a buddy from the online community. Now I mentioned stage 2 access. Let me just mention that again. It's not a big deal, but it's something you have to do a little something. By the way, you don't have to have access to stage 2. Lots of people have gotten, and remember, it's just one of 5 stages, and lots of people have gotten tremendous help from Self-Therapy Journey without using stage 2. But for the most complete healing and transformation, it would be good to use stage 2. So I'd recommend it for those of you who are interested to get an access code. And if you've been working with a licensed therapist or counselor either now or in the past, and they know you well enough to know that it would be safe for you to use stage 2, you can send them a link to one of the pages on the site, which has a letter from me to therapists explaining the whole situation and what the stage 2 access is all about and what they need to do to get you an access code. Or if you prefer, you can email me and have me do a half-hour evaluation session with you, or one of our other therapist guides if you don't want to do it with me. And I purposely, $50 is less than half of my hourly rate, but in order to make STJ as affordable as possible, that's all I charge for doing these evaluation sessions. And then I'll give you an access code. And that way you can have access to stage 2. And in addition to that, I provide personal support to everybody who uses Self-Therapy Journey. So I encourage everybody who starts it to contact me so that we can actually talk on the phone or by Skype, and I can get to know you a little bit and answer any questions you have and offer support in using it. And also, anytime you get stuck or you need help, you can contact me for support. Okay. Right now, Self-Therapy Journey costs just $25 a month for a subscription, and there's a 14-day free trial. And I've been working in about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to add the possibility that you don't have to just sign up for the $25 a month. You can purchase a single pattern or a single capacity or a single wound for $10, or even a restricted version of a single capacity or wound. Well, the wound is just $5, or you can purchase or enroll for a simpler version of a pattern or capacity for just $5. So it's a way to make it easy access into Self-Therapy Journey, even less than the $25 a month. And then if you find yourself doing a lot of different patterns or capacities, then you probably want to switch over and get the monthly, but you have the choice. And then I want to talk, unfortunately, I wish the slides were here, but you know what? I'm going to be going over different resources that are related to Self-Therapy Journey and IFS. And unfortunately, we don't have the slides here, but you will be getting a couple emails after this webinar that include all the resources and links to them. So that's even really better. So the website itself is selftherapyjourney.com. That's kind of obvious. If you are a therapist or counselor or other professional who are considering using STJ with your clients, or you have a client who's come to you and said they want to use it, I have a booklet, a fairly extensive booklet called The Professional's Guide to Self-Therapy Journey that really shows you in detail how it works. And then I also have another version of that for non-professionals. Now, of course, those of you who've gone through this webinar probably don't need the booklet, although it goes into even more detail than I went through here. But I've covered a lot of that in this webinar, so you might not need the booklet, but it's there if you do. And then there's additional resources related to IFS. There's my book, Self-Therapy. If inner critic stuff is a major issue of yours, Bonnie and I have also written a book called Freedom from Your Inner Critic, which shows how to detail how to work with inner critic parts using IFS. Of course, I just kind of showed you that today, although this Self-Therapy Journey is a little different than regular IFS, of course. There are other IFS resources. There's a basic IFS phone course, which is a 6-week phone course where you learn the basics of IFS, and that's actually starting in 2 days on Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, please sign up right away. Or you can get recorded versions of the IFS courses. And then we have an online store that has a whole bunch of IFS guided meditations and also recordings of demonstration IFS sessions that we did, either Bonnie or I did with people who are actually working on real issues. And then there's a series of professional books and booklets that I've written on IFS. In addition to that, I have a therapy group on Thursday evenings for people who are local here in the Bay Area. And I have an IFS consultation training group that meets once a month for professionals on the phone. And I'm also going to have an ongoing IFS phone class for professionals if you're interested in something like that. If you really get into it, you might actually want to do individual IFS therapy. IFS is so wonderful. And the Center for Self-Leadership, which is the main IFS organization, has listings of IFS therapists by location. You could also contact Bonnie or me, and we, and actually many of the people on the list do IFS by either phone or Skype, so you don't have to be limited to therapists that are local to you. We also have an IFS website, which is personalgrowthprograms.com. You'll get a link to that. There's also a book on the pattern system called The Pattern System, and another book on the pattern system called Conflict, Care, and Love. And there's more and more. There's booklets on various specific patterns that I've written, like procrastination, people-pleasing, caretaking, intimacy, perfectionism, and inner champions. There's webinars on various subjects that are also available in our store. And there's a pattern system. There's also a separate website for the pattern system called patternsystem.com. Okay, so we're almost finished here. Let me just check back and see if, whoops. Looks like no other comments. Okay, well, so that does it. So I hope that some of you will try out Self Therapy Journey and contact me, and we can talk on the phone or by Skype, and I'll get to know you a little bit. Or if you're interested in my class that starts on Wednesday, feel free to sign up. And I guess that's it for today. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And by the way, I do these webinars every 2 or 3 weeks, so feel free to join in the future. And you will get an email with a recording of this webinar that you can play, and also one with all the resources listed and with links to all of them. Okay, bye for now.